Good evening. Welcome to this week's Rocky Brand live stream. Let's see if there's anyone who is keen as mustard and is joining us right from the beginning of the stream today. Usually get one or two. If you are here, say hello in the chat and we'll get a conversation going. So today's stream is, hey Mobius, how you doing? Thanks for joining early. Today we're going to be looking at a kind of a case study. Hey Ephraim, good to have you. We're going to be looking at a client case study of a logo design job, which I did a little while ago now. But it was kind of a cool little logo design. And just thought it would be quite good to just basically just go through my thinking process of how that went with that logo job. It's a slightly different start on that one compared to my usual logo projects. The client had already done a little bit of work on it, so we were kind of picking it up from not quite the starting line, but a little bit down the line. It was an interesting project to work on. So we'll be looking at that, and we'll also be looking at another couple of logos which have been submitted by some Rocky Brand channel subscribers. So we'll be looking at those at the end. So yeah, as I say, we'll have a look at the case study first. It was quite good having a break last week. So I think I'm looking forward to doing this every 2 weeks. There's a bit less pressure on me to do it every week, so that should be quite good. So what we'll do is we'll just really get started. People will join when they join. Mobius, you're here. Ephraim, you're here. So, you know, you get pride of place. And we'll just basically go through this. So let me just jump over to my desktop and get started here. So as I say, normally I would be doing some brand strategy work with a client in the beginning. Before I even touch my sketchbooks, I will, you know, kind of get to know their business, the sector that they're in, try to find out about their purpose, their vision, mission, values, all that stuff. And I will be doing a live stream where I talk about that area of things specifically. But in this instance, the client had kind of all of that in place. And really what they were lacking was a brand identity or a logo that could represent what it is that they were, you know, trying to do. They had a website which they were pretty happy with. So really I was creating a logo to sit on their website and to be used in their wider branding. And the client sent me through a PDF showing some work that they'd been doing up till that point, just to give me an insight into what they were thinking. And so I thought, well, we could go through that first as well, so you can see the starting point that I had. Now, obviously, I had quite a few calls with the client and was really, really interested in their business. They were in the tech sector, coding, creating software, not something which I'm that kind of knowledgeable on, but that's the cool thing about the job that I do, is that when I do work for clients, I learn a lot about the sectors that they're in. There are a lot of designers who are going into niche areas, so they're choosing a specific industry sector and focusing on that and targeting. So let's say it's construction companies. They will, you know, learn as much as they can about the construction industry and target those types of companies and say, look, I'm really knowledgeable on the construction industry. I can help you with your branding. There are advantages to that, in that all of your marketing is aimed at one, you know, niche, so you can really focus on that. I, on the other hand, don't have a niche. I'm more of a generalist, so I I'm open to helping people in any industry, and I really enjoy that. I enjoy learning about industries as I'm going on. So I suppose that is a bit of a negative in terms of I have to learn that industry from scratch, but it also means I can kind of come at that industry almost as a customer. I don't know that much about it, so I'm asking all the questions that a customer might ask, and the client has to be able to give me those answers, and together we can then build the brand. So there's pros and cons to both, but just wanted to get across that I'm more of a generalist. So like I said, the client had been kind of trying to come up with a logo themselves, and he was very honest with me, that its design wasn't, his area, but he had in his head, like a lot of clients do, he had in his head what he thought, or an idea of what he thought would work for the company, but he wasn't quite getting it himself. And so they had this, sort of potential tagline of coding for good. The company is very purpose-led and is what I would call a social good company. So, when they do work for a business or an organization, they will either, give money to a good cause, or they will do the buy one, give one approach. So let's say they developed, let's say someone paid them to develop a piece of software, then what they would do is they would then find an organization that they want to support, and they would develop a piece of software for that company for free. So buy one, give one. And there's a lot of companies who are now getting involved in the buy one, give one approach, which is awesome. It's really, really good stuff to do. Hey, Salman, thanks for joining. We're just going through a case study here for a client. So you can see here that the client, and by the way, the client's name was Fox. And Fox had said that these early iterations look like a gossip magazine, and they do. It's just kind of got that look to it. I think the magenta and the blue, the dark blue, it's kind of has that gossip magazine look to it. And so this is the sort of where Fox had got to with his logo. And he gave some, descriptions to me, he was very keen on a specific type of font that he wanted, or typeface. And he really liked this one, and he really liked one that was used by the company Brandless. But in this logo above, he's using Roboto. And he says Roboto is too ironic because they are a coding company. He wanted to stay away from that and find something a bit more neutral, but very readable from a distance and or when small. He liked the concept that he'd done by having the H, combining it with a human aspect and a digital aspect. And the idea being that it represents human support and output of digital input. So it's that mix of, getting the human side with the ones and zeros. And he also wanted to emphasize the H so that it could be used as a standalone mark on social. So that's, important as well when you're creating logos, is that yes, you can create the logo in its entirety, but you need to think about things like social media, profile images that are, can be very, very small in the stream of things. I'm even looking at my YouTube chat window right now, and the icons of everyone that's in chat, is really quite small, and it's difficult to make out what a lot of them are because they tend to be photographs or illustrations, and so when they're that small, it's difficult to make out what they are. So your logo is going to be that small as well, so you often want to create an icon that goes in there, or if you have a word mark as a logo, maybe it's the first letter of the word mark, or you just use color, or you create some sort of iconography that can be used in the social media side of things. And then he says you also played with using the I and turning that into a person of sorts, but then on its own it makes no sense. So he was doing what a logo designer would do. He was exploring the options and then ruling out the ones which really weren't working. What he then did was he then kind of put the word mark and the sort of the H symbol into a block and punched it through so that you could then see what was behind it. So whether that was gradients or photographs. And then he's showing it here sort of on their, this is their homepage, this is what their website homepage looks like, sitting up on the top, and it stands out and is very readable. I would say that the H with the little person in it, and then the pixels are already starting to get lost. But the word humanitive is clear. And so Fox was saying that his feeling was that his logo was super close to what he wants. It just needs a better font. He felt that the H needed to be properly designed with clearer pixels. It must be clear that it is a human when the logo's small, not just when it's big. Again, that's that scale thing. And ideally, the human will be gender neutral, so it won't look like a man or a woman. It'll just be a human form. The logo must fit in a long space as above and also have a square version for social media. Using bright pinks and purples in order to stand out on social media and on print, etc. He didn't want to be blue, green, or sort of, like what tech companies or energy companies use. And he said he's open to alternative icons, fonts, colors, and concepts for sure. And then this was again sort of the same logo, but using a lowercase type rather than all uppercase. And then he had some ideas for potential strap lines. And as I say, they do the social good thing. So it's, he had code for good, good for business, that sort of thing. And so that's where, Fox came to me. He came to me with this. And so that was where my starting point was. So we had we had a few meetings and discussions, and I've got quite a few artboards here to go through, and so I can't really quite remember what order they're in. So I will try to. They're in the order that I went through the process of creating their logo, so it should make logical sense as we go through it. But as I say, this is my starting point. I didn't feel that the H that Fox had created was working, and I was a bit concerned about it when it was, really on the small side of things. And one of the first things that pretty much any logo that I work with, one of the first things that I tend to do is I'll sit and just go through my fonts. I'll open up Fontbase, and Fontbase I've shown this a few times on the stream. I use Fontbase, which basically just collects all of my type, and I can group it into different folders so that I've got, ones that if it's, a modern looking brand, I can go for modern design typefaces, or if it's more heritage, I can look at, sort of more heritage type stuff. So, you got kind of more vintage looking things. And so this really helps me, and I can quickly go through, and then I can also, I can type in what I want what the name of the brand is, if I can remember how to spell, and I can have it in all upper caps, leading caps, and then all lowercase. And it quickly lets me, I can go through really quickly and just scan and see which ones jump out at me. So that's one of the first things that I do. I also, I don't just use Google fonts. I will look at any appropriate font. And in this instance, you can see here, I was, kind of looking at the prices for these just to get an idea of what it would cost my client. A lot of these fonts I already have, so I don't need to buy them. But if the client were ever to need to use these for headlines on their website, or for if they want to create their own, print stuff, then they would potentially need these fonts. So they would have to pay for them. So I need to let them know how much that's going to cost. So that's one of the things that I do. And when I'm working with a brand, like say if I'm starting with them from scratch, I'll have worked on their brand strategy. So I'll have a good idea of what their personality is, what their tone of voice is. And so I'll be looking at typefaces to match that personality. What am I looking for? Am I looking for something classic, modern, tech, fun? And I will look for typefaces that work for that. Now, obviously, Fox had given me sort of an alley or a lane to go down because he had a specific look in mind. And so I started off by looking in that area, more sort of humanist fonts in that kind of category, something which would be clear at small sizes, but just have a little bit of character to it as well. Nothing too sterile. Wanted to get something in there, and humanist type fonts can do that. So I did that first. Then started looking at ways of, trying to incorporate this human into the H, explore that. And I'll be honest, there's, like any development and concept work, there's a lot of absolutely terrible ideas, terrible concepts that go through the sketch process, and even onto, Illustrator boards. And so I was kind of using, just trying to kind of bring in some sort of, human form to this, but it wasn't quite working. Even went, to the full extent of having like eyes on the U down here on this type here, because it was, if I kind of zoom in, the sort of increased the ink trap a little bit, and it was too comedic, too funny looking. On this one down here, I was trying to do that gender neutral thing, but again, it wasn't really working. Using the eyes almost, again, to try to sort of make a face, but it just wasn't working for me. The most successful one was probably this one, but then it could also look like a letter K. If this was, sort of, this is where I get my crayons out. If that was, almost sort of joined up, then potentially it would, it could look like a K from a distance. When that was made smaller, it would look like potentially look like letter K. So that's no good either. And then so I started looking at more angular stuff, but then we're moving away from the human side, which is a little bit softer, less sharp, less sterile, as Fox was, saying. He doesn't want it to look sterile, so we needed to kind of move away from that. Start to look through their website as well. I'll just quickly bring that up. So I don't want to scroll this website because obviously the logo I've done is on there. I want to kind of save that till the end. But if you look at their website and look at their, purpose page, it tells you what they're all about and how they follow what's known as the global goals. And the global goals are, I think it's 15 or 17 global goals that cover a lot of different things. And, it can be good as a company to focus on one of those goals. And this video here is going through them. So poverty, hunger, good health, education, and there are many of them. And this is one of the things that that Humanitive do. And so I want to make sure that we kind of, keep going with that. And so I was pulling bits out of their website and some of the information that Fox was giving me. So, we help make life better through software. We do this by helping customers. We do this by building relationships, relationship management software that talks their language, Safe Hands, and the story holds it together. So I started looking at hands for, the caring aspect, and then sort of notice that there is in this one sort of here, there is a kind of an H shape in the negative space. And so I started to, but I didn't want to have hands because it's a bit cliched. So I started to, how simple can I go? How simple can I make these hands so that they become more of an icon? So I started simplifying it down. I've got lots of sketches where I was going through this process. This is sort of just a few of the end ones. And really, really started to simplify it down. Had it so that maybe the H could actually go in so that like the hand is holding, the Humanitive H. And started to look at that approach. And I kind of liked that. I thought it was a nice iconic symbol. But but it didn't really fit with the type, and Fox wasn't really feeling this as something that he wanted to go for. Just check on the chat here. Someone's saying he's currently at McDonald's and it's 3 a.m. and we just found out you come to McDonald's at 3 a.m. you can order, you can get a Happy Meal. I'm glad you've got your Happy Meal and you're watching me live stream. That's awesome. I could be doing with a Happy Meal. Starving right now. So kind of what moved on a little bit further. Started to do some more sketching about the connections, and I've got notes here, life better through software, stronger, longer lasting customer relationships, relationship management software that talks their language, better relationships through software, and just trying to get that journey. So you can see I've got little things here saying here's the customer on this side, and you've got the client on this side, and Humanitive are in the middle. So they're the sort of the centerpiece, which is talking across, so they're the software thing in the middle. So it was about kind of conversations. So I was starting to look at more of a conversation approach, and so that's where kind of speech bubbles came in. But then, you could have, in some places where these speech bubbles crossed over, the letter H was kind of forming as well, which was interesting to me. But then that was maybe starting to look a little bit like like it was a chat application, a messaging app. And again, that's not what they were about. They're not a messaging app, especially with them being in the tech space. It could be very easy for people to get the wrong message there. This one was quite interesting. This one down here, as sort of, two sort of people talking to one another. But again, a little bit too sharp, a little bit too angular. And so the process moved on. And each of these kind of iterations where I got to a point where it was like, okay, let's discuss this. I always discuss it with my client. I don't leave them in the dark until the end. I don't go away, seclude myself, and then just come back and say, here's a concept. I like to have the client involved wherever I can, make sure that they're kind of getting to see the process and, why am I making these decisions? Because if you just kind of throw a logo concept at someone, it can be a bit of a shock. If they're expecting, maybe in their own mind's eye, they're expecting something and then you give them something very different, and it's a bit of a culture shock. And then, you have to then do a lot of hand holding to get them on board. Whereas if you bring the client along and they're sort of on board with your way of thinking, then that really helps. And you get their input as well. Now, what I'm not saying is I'm not letting the client control the project. That's not a good way to go. We're not Mac monkeys. We're not here to have the client direct our hand. That's not what we're doing. But it's just making sure that they're involved enough that they know why decisions are being made from a visual standpoint. So took this H speech bubble thing a little bit further, rounded it off, and started to sit it next to some more rounded typefaces and fonts. You can see down here, I've got some binary code, and this is actually the name Humanitive in binary. Just kind of wanted to see what that looked like. Just as part, I'll explore everything when I'm doing work like this. And then on one of them, I just happened to kind of, I don't know why, but thinking about humans and what makes us all different and things like that. And I started thinking about fingerprints. And this was just done on my iPad, I think, or it might have been done in Illustrator. And I just started, because I was thinking fingerprint, I was like, oh, that could almost be sort of the very middle part of a fingerprint, and then you've got the lines going around the outside of it. And it was just something which kind of popped into my head, and I just wanted to get the marks down just so that if I go back, I go, oh yeah, I had that idea about the fingerprints. And so I had some more, went away, did some more thinking, did some more reading, looking more at the global goals again, and had this paragraph here: you can't change the world with just an idea. To really make a difference, you need human beings putting them in motion. And things take time. People can cause ripples between other people, and we leave our fingerprint on things. And so this, this was kind of all coming from this one little scribble. Started to get me thinking about, well, can we bring in a more human aspect to it? And so I started to think about the lines, on fingerprints, and could I use, ripples and how everyone affects one another. If you do something for someone, that has a ripple effect on how it affects them. And so I started to look at having ripples through the name of Humanative, and just trying out again. On these slides, you're only seeing a small portion of all of the different levels of lines and thicknesses of lines and how many ripples go into them. But I was feeling this as an option to go forward with it. Oh, I've got a few more people on here. Tashinga's on, Motik's on, or Motik, Ashfaq's on. Thanks for joining. Tashinga, do I use a tablet for sketching? I do. I use my iPad Pro. But to be honest, I do still have paper sketchbooks as well. There's something about, I find when I'm using my iPad Pro and I'm sketching and I'm just doing rough sketches, I do still have a tendency that if I make a line or a mark and I'm not happy with it, I'll hit the undo button. And then I'll try it again, and until I get it right. But with my sketchbooks and a pencil or a pen, once that mark's down, it's there, and I have to kind of work with it. So I like that about the traditional pencil and paper, is that once the mark's there, it's there, and so you kind of work with what you have. When I'm working on the iPad Pro, it's too easy to undo mistakes. And so I'll use that now and again and just undo it. Whereas in the past, lots of my logos, it's kind of happened here, is that ideas can come from putting a line in the wrong place or where you didn't mean to put it. And what happens is you do that by accident and it creates a form, or it does something on the page that makes you think there's something in that. You didn't deliberately do it, but you've done it, you've made the mark, and it's leading you down a new path. And that's why I always say, when you're sketching, first thing you'll do is have all the obvious ideas. But you have to keep going and just making marks, and anything that pops into your head, just make the mark. It doesn't have to be a great drawing, just make the mark, because that's what's going to lead you to probably the right concept for you. But yeah, it's definitely still a big part of what I do is sketching, and trying to kind of switch off a little bit. If I'm finding that I'm really having to force it, I will just put it down and walk away, and just go and do something else. And that something else isn't research or anything. I'll literally go away and do something not connected to that job, because my brain's obviously tired and I need to just relax it from that. Then I'll go back later and start sketching again. And the cool thing about walking away for a few hours is that when you go back and you look at what you've done, you're looking at it with fresh eyes, and you might see something, that you didn't see before. So it's always good to take a rest. Don't, sketch. For me, I couldn't sketch for like 4 hours. I generally do sort of 2.5 hours, have a break, and then I'll go back to it later and do some more sketching, and do it that way. So moving on, like I say, I've got quite a few slides to go through today. So I started looking at this fingerprint thing in a little bit more detail. So these were done on my iPad, just quickly, just trying to figure out. And you can see here that most of them I was trying to have this H in the middle and then sort of work around having the H. Some more successful than others, shall we say. This one I was trying to do a thumbprint with a speech bubble. Again, I'm just getting everything down, and 99% of things get thrown away, but you need to get them down on paper. Even if you think about it in your head and you go, that's a terrible idea, still put it down on paper. Still get it out of your head and get it down. Because whilst you're drawing it, you might actually make a good finding just from the way that you're drawing things. So start to get a little bit more detailed with it all, exploring a little bit further. The ones and zeros came back in again. I even started looking at it in Morse code, which is obviously a little bit more old school, you know, ... Probably too old school for a modern software company. But I just, again, wanted to see what Humanative would look like in Morse code. And then here, you can see I was kind of doing a spiral with Humanative in binary. And I think what was going through my head there was, could I do that, but in the shape of a thumbprint? But the problem is, things again start to get really small. When you want to make that really small, there's so much detail in that it's just going to be impossible to see. This one up here on the top right was maybe getting a little bit closer to what I kind of had in my head about the thumbprint. This one down here was sort of taking an actual human's thumbprint, and then what I was trying to suggest was more of a digital thumbprint, something that was a bit more kind of looked more geometric, less random, and sort of the crossover of the two, you know, a digital thumbprint and a human thumbprint. Again, way too complex, but worth exploring as an idea. Then I started thinking about, well, does it just have to be a singular fingerprint? What about a whole handprint, you know? Because that then takes us, what my thinking was with that then takes us back to sort of caveman times, where, you know, our human ancestors were leaving marks on cave walls. You know, that was their message. And I thought that's maybe a cool idea, because the company's all about purpose and helping the human race, and so maybe a handprint is quite a good idea. But we could mix it in again with the thumbprint idea as well. And then you can see here I was bringing an H in, so it was I kind of liked that, but I felt that was it looked more like it was a poster rather than a logo, because again, it was too complex. But I really, really liked it. I really liked this middle one here. I've not looked at this stuff for quite a while, and so going through this again today was quite interesting, and looking at some of the concepts and thinking, I'd actually quite like to do something with that, personally for myself, because I think it's a good idea. So again, moved on from that, and started to look at the ripple and time and waves, mixed in with still thinking about the human, you know, fingerprint thing, and dropping in letters. So that was actually, you know, just dropped in an F there because it was like a, you know, a mistake, because it should have been an H, and dropping the H's in there again to sort of see how that could interact. Would that make a good symbol? But then when you start to get down to small sizes, you lose the ripples. So again, I still explored it though. I still put it down so that I had a record of the journey, because this is important for the client, you know, to understand the journey as well. I won't show the client all of this stuff, by the way, because sometimes if you show the client all of your working that's come from your head, I, as a professional designer, know when something's going to work or not for a logo. Your client probably doesn't. And your client may latch on to one of the designs that you know will not work. But if they see it And they're like, I love that. Can we use that? Can we use that? And you're like, no, we can't use that because that's not going to fit this criteria. It doesn't fit the brand in this way. It won't work when it's small. But the client, their mind starts to get fixated on that. And then when you're trying to present new concepts that are better, they might still be going, I still really like that one that I saw on your sketchboards. So generally what I'll do is I will discuss with the client the thoughts that I've had, and I will only really show them all of this work at the end once we've kind of agreed what the logo concept is going to be and they're happy with it. Then I'm happy to then go, okay, here's the journey, here's the full journey that's taken to get to that point. That then shows the client how much work and thought has gone into their identity. And it usually gets them excited because they can see the story that's behind it, and they know that they can then tell that story. So I wouldn't recommend you bring your client into this level of detail because they can, like I say, they can kind of get caught up on a specific idea which is not going to work for them. So going from here onto the next one, was to basically focus on using circles. And the reason for that to me was the circle just represented some cliched stuff like, you know, the planet Earth, the globe, but it also represented the global goals, you know, and the global goals logo is basically a circle made up of 15 or 17 segments, but there's a segment for each of the global goals. And so I wanted to kind of have some of that roundedness in the logo in some way. And so again, I was practicing with randomizing lines and stuff. I didn't know how to do that in Illustrator. I had to go and watch some YouTube videos, figure out how I could do random lines using, I think it's using the warp tool. This might all be outlined. Yes, so this is, I think, using the warp tool to create those. And then these ones here, I've outlined those lines. I've actually forgotten a lot of how to do certain things, and my brain can only hold so much. So you can see here, I've got little numbers, or you may not be able to see. I'm not sure how big you're viewing this, but this is 0.5 of a point line size. This is 1, and this is 1.5. So it was, again, seeing how thin can we go, how thick can we go, and trying them out. And again, I tried a lot more weights than this. Then what I did was, because one of the things that wasn't quite right about this was these are continuous lines. They're all continuous. But to bring in the thumbprint aspect, when you look at your thumbprints, or you have a thumbprint, they're not all continuous. There are breaks. There's breaks in the lines in your thumbprint. And so I started to bring that in to this as well. And you can see here, again, I overlaid an H shape onto it, and then worked a little bit to sort of, I think I moved some of these, or kind of worked with some of these to try to get the H to almost flow a little bit through it as well. And then when I made them smaller, I removed, I think for these small ones down here, I think I removed every second line from the big one. So that, because when you make this one the size of that one down here, get this to move. Hello, will you move, please? There we go. You can see how they all start to condense the smaller you go. So I was just testing out removing, I think it was every second line, to see what that would do to the shape. And then this often happens when I'm going through the process, is I'll be fully in on something, and then I'll have another idea that I have to explore, because if I don't, it would drive me mad. And so I had this other idea whilst I was working with lines and stuff, and it was basically, you know, having worked with these here, I had this idea of like, well, what if I do, so I'm clicking back and forward, and I said here I was trying to get the lines to flow as the H. So what if I have the H in there and the lines do flow through the H? And so I just sat for a little while and did that. And I showed it to my client, Fox, and what do you think about this as an idea? And he said all he could see, what it looked like bacon. So, you know, the meat, bacon. It looked like, you know, when you stylize a strip of bacon, it's usually done sort of like in wavy lines. And when he saw it, he couldn't unsee that, and it was kind of stuck in his head. And so I kind of got that, but it also got it out of my system. There's something about that might work for, you know, another project or something, you know, at another time. But again, I just need to explore these things and get them out of my head, because it's often good to see that something doesn't work as much as what does work. So I moved back into my way of thinking and throwing in some words, having more discussions with Fox, the client, and thinking about things like flow, connections, ripple effects, imprint, fingerprint, and I've got Zen garden there as well. You know, when you see the Japanese Zen gardens where they use the rakes to kind of make, you know, these amazing shapes, where they drag the rake through the sand, and they use them for meditation and things like that. And I was like, well, that's kind of cool. But it was very clear that, and you can see here, this hand's been brought back in because I still really liked that at this time. But we were gravitating more towards this globe with the ripples and the fingerprint. But I really needed to simplify it. There was just no way this was going to work as a very small icon. So again, more work being done. What's the minimum? How many lines can I take away before it then stops looking like what we want it to look like? And so that was kind of what I started to do. Needed to introduce the breaks again. So I'm reducing the lines, I'm increasing the thickness of the lines, and then I'm seeing, well, what's the minimum number of breaks in the line that I would need to kind of infer that that's almost like a fingerprint. So we're now starting to take on all of the things like the number of lines, the thickness of the lines, how many line breaks, what should the flow be like through the shape as well. Also explored it inside a square because I just had to. I was thinking, you know, constantly thinking about social media because that was one of the things that Fox had mentioned. It must work as a social media icon. And at the time, you know, it was a mix of circles and squares. More and more social media platforms and forums and chat rooms are moving to circular. That may change. That may all flip back to squares again. Who knows? They change all the time. But it was just important for me to, again, explore and see how that would work. But I wasn't really feeling the square. It wasn't really working for me. So moved back to the circle. And then one of the things that I'd had a discussion with Fox was I wasn't that keen on how sharp the lines were ending. So they were almost like they'd been cut with a razor. It was a really, really clean circular cut, like it'd been a cookie cutter had been kind of plonked down and put on it. And so I wanted to explore what it would look like if I rounded the edges of the broken lines. And I really liked what was coming out of that. It started to feel a bit softer again, which was what Fox was looking for. And so kind of explored that and started to, you know, one of the things that I'd showed, this was one of the concepts, this one here was one I did show Fox because this was getting closer to where I thought we needed to be. And one of Fox's comments was, is there any way we can maybe have it so that there's maybe a little bit more movement through the shape? So I started looking at sort of thinning out, so it looked like, you know, there was sort of you start off small and then it gets bigger as you move. I started looking at that. Wasn't working for me. And what was starting to happen was we were starting to lose the circle, the globe shape. It was starting to get a little bit more uneven. And that wasn't really sitting with me. So it was kind of like trying to bring it back into a more circular shape. One of the things that, that I'd done here, I'd pretty much just done these freehand. And so I started to look at, trying to get a flow using circles and trying to see if I can get it so that, it would make sense in terms of geometrically. Whether this is, correct or not is neither here nor there. It was just me trying to smooth out some of those lines to try to get them to flow better in the shape. And we're kind of working our way through lots of these. And this was kind of where I sort of was getting to, back to more of a circle, rounding off the top and bottom one so that you are starting to get more of that inference that it is a globe. Whereas, on these ones that were, back here, they were just kind of stopping. This one here just wasn't really working for me. And this one was just wasn't really following through with it. So this one was better for me. Then when I was happy with that, I needed to then go back and start looking at type. I did looked at quite a lot of type, but I wanted something that was rounded and soft, that would help mirror the shape, the icon, the symbol that we're going to have as part of this combination mark for the logo. And you can see, from where we are at the beginning, where Fox had the H, when you had the little person inside it and the little pixels, and we're far removed from that now. I didn't say to myself, right, that's what Fox wants, so I need to create a version of that. My job is to explore and look at other options and and ideals. Now, obviously, you could have budget constraints. How much time can you spend based on the budget? And it's another reason for, if you do want to be able to spend the time to explore a project fully, then you need to charge the amount to cover that time. Otherwise, there is a chance that you're, so if there wasn't much of a budget there, then yeah, I could probably just say, right, okay, what I'll do is I'll take your idea, and I will just make it a bit better. I'll polish it up, and that's it. But then that's maybe not the best solution for the identity. So I was able to go through the process that I've gone through. So my initial thoughts were, when I'm trying to make a logo appear to be more human and warm and approachable, I like to go lowercase with it rather than all caps. Because all caps can be a bit more authoritative, and so lowercase just feels a little bit softer. I don't know what it is about it, it just feels a little bit softer. But if you look at a lot of tech companies, they do tend to go with lowercase for that reason. But then I whilst I was looking through, and I can't actually remember the name of this typeface now, it's gone off the top of my head. I think it's called Grover. I think it's called Grover. And I don't know what it was. I really, really liked the softness of that, even though it was all caps. It just felt like it balanced better with the icon that I'd created. Now, obviously, Fox had been going for more, that's a sans serif as well, but he was going for a more angled type, and so this was a bit different, and so we had quite a few discussions around this, and I basically I wouldn't say talked him round, but we had discussions on what we felt was right for the brand, what fits the brand, what fits the brand persona, its personality. And that's the thing, I've said this before, you don't ask the client, do you like this? You ask the client, do you feel that this fits the brand? It's a different question and is a different conversation. So it needs to be what you think about, what you like. So I'm just looking, there's a few more people joined. Hey Tom, thanks for joining. And Ben's saying first guy called Fox since Fox Powell. I think Fox is the only Fox that I know other than Fox Mulder from the X-Files. That's the only other Fox that I know. But Fox is such a cool name. Kind of jealous of him from having that name. And I will say as well, Fox is an amazing human being. He does do Twitch live streams, which are really fun to watch. If you're a Twitch fan, you should check out. I'm putting it in chat. Conductor Crunchy. That's Fox's username. You should check him out when he's on live. He just does some really fun stuff. Hey Suhaib, I think I've pronounced that right. If I haven't, I'm sorry. Thanks for being a long time subscriber. I appreciate it. And hopefully these kinds of reviews and case studies are useful, and you can kind of learn things from it. So we settled on Grover. I think it's Grover Small Caps. It's all coming back to me now. And we settled on that. And then this is a screenshot from earlier on from the PDF that Fox had supplied me with way back at the beginning, with his logo on here and sort of the color scheme, because that was the next thing. Once we have the logo, we need to then start looking at the colors. And Fox didn't want to use sort of blue and green combinations. You want to use more sort of pinks, purples, and blues. So I started to look at that. Fox had asked me to look at gradient, because the website kind of had this isometric gradient thing. Another thing I say quite a bit is I have used gradients in logos, but I'm very careful as and when I use them. And some colors will perform a smooth gradient nicely. You can do smooth gradients on screen fairly easily. It's when you come to print gradients that it can get a bit messy, where the colors are moving from one into the other. That transition area can look really horrible. Just the color that you end up with isn't what you expect, and so I'm very, very careful about that. And I did say to Fox, I think I'd rather we moved away and just moved into solid color for this. So I started looking at maybe alternate lines could change color as well. That was an option to go with, but we decided that we would just probably look more at the solid colors. And looking at these, so it was kind of between the purple and the magenta, or the cyan and the magenta, and we were back and forward between the two quite a bit, and then we eventually settled on the cyan and the magenta because it was much brighter. The purple was a bit dark, and we just felt that this was quite fresh and looked quite modern, and it was in a way gender neutral, which was kind of what Fox had said earlier about when he had the little human icon. It wanted it to be gender neutral. Now, in certain cultures, it's pink for a girl, blue for a boy. That's changing. For older generations, that will always be the case. But for me, anyone should be able to use pink, and it shouldn't really represent a specific gender, but it does to some people. But this kind of having this blue and pink kind of equals things out a little bit, I suppose, in terms of the logo and the brand for that. And so this was the final logo for Humanitive in its final form, in its horizontal inline version with the symbol leading, so combination mark. Hey OG. Glad you caught the live stream. We've still got a couple of logo reviews to do after this as well, so you've not arrived too late. And then, so we've only got a few more slides to go. You'd be glad to know. And then obviously I needed to kind of create a stacked version for when space was a little bit more limited, and that works out quite nicely as well. The only thing which is missing from this is a tagline. I don't have, in this case study, I don't have a tagline on these. It's just the logo on its own because I wanted to just focus on that. And then this is a screenshot of the website with the Humanitive logo kind of put in place by me to see how that looks and sits on the site. And, you know, it's fairly small on the website and it's still really clear, still really legible. Yeah, just again, just a mock-up. This is their sort of humans page. I love that their About Us page is called Humans as well, and not just About Us. It just takes that brand thing about, you know, the human approach that little bit further. And then one of the documents that I provide is just a very simple one-page logo usage guidelines. It's just really handy for the client to have so they can quickly see what their colors are, if they're, you know, needing to hand that on to someone, what's kind of the smallest size that the logo should be, you know, put down to. Clear space around the logo, you know, keep any sort of images and text a certain amount of space away. I try to use something which is in the logo so it's easy to reference that when the logo goes small, and then some do's and don'ts. I also have a much more in-depth set of logo guidelines, but essentially it's the same information which is here, but it's just kind of spread out a little bit more. There's more on the typography, a little bit more on the colors. I'll show tints and shades of the colors as well. So it's just a little bit more expansive, but this one-page guide is super handy for your clients to have, and you can kind of mock this up in whatever way you want. But this is the relevant stuff that they will need most of the time. You know, how many times as a designer do you have the client coming back saying, what font is it we're using again? Or what's our RGB code, or what's our hexadecimal code? You see here actually that I don't even have the RGB on here. I tend to just use the hexadecimal, and then I'll have what the fonts are. And I'll usually speak to the client and we'll come up with a supporting font for headlines and things. And I think in this case it was Railway that we went with for that. And then after that, what I then need to do is I then need to supply the client with their logo. And back in the day, when I say back in the day, I'm talking like 2-3 years ago, that was all done manually. I would basically set up artboards and I would export one logo at a time and different colors, different sizes, and it would take forever. And if you've got a client whose logo has multiple different orientations and different color sets, it would take forever. So the Logo Package Express, many of you have probably already watched the video review I've done of this, but if you haven't, and you're a designer, especially if you're a logo designer, you need to check this out. It's amazing. Basically, what used to take me a few hours now takes me 5 minutes. I'm so quick with this software now. It takes me 5 minutes, and I'm exporting every logo format that my client will need in multiple sizes and in multiple file formats, so for digital and print. And it's all nicely structured. The software does it all for you. It creates a folder structure and everything is in there, and it just does it all automatically. You need to do a couple of steps to set up. You basically choose your logo, you tell the software what the icon is, what the word mark is, if there's a tagline, and then you go in and you can what it can also do is it can also, from your logo, specify Pantone spot colors. I personally like to do that manually because I choose my spot colors using my Pantone books, because sometimes the software doesn't quite get it right. I just don't trust it doing that. So there's actually a setting in Logo Package Express where you can uncheck a box and it'll let you do it manually, but you can let it do it automatically, and it just basically does it. You just press a button and it does it. And then I create a zip file, I put the logo guidelines document into it. There's also a cheat sheet that you'll get with Logo Package Express, just a PDF that basically tells the client what it is. I wonder if I've got the folder open right now. See if I can find this for you. It'd be quite good to show you, I think. It's a very simple document. Here it is. So this should open up here. So it's a very simple document. It just basically has a list of what the different file types are that you're exporting using Logo Package Express, and it tells your client what they're generally used for. So it gives them an idea. And so it's who's it for. So the client can use PDFs, JPEGs, PNGs. Designers will use PDFs, AIs, EPSs. Developers will want SVGs, JPEGs, and PNGs. And a vendor, so merchandise, t-shirt printing, embroidery, they will probably want a PDF or an EPS or an AI. And there's a little list here. Where would you use them? So if you're going to be printing, you ideally want to use AIs, PDF, and EPS. And if it's digital, you want to use these. And then why? So why are we choosing these? Well, because these are scalable. You won't lose any quality. They're fully editable. These ones are universal. And also you can have transparency, which is handy, for online. And so that's just a handy little document, again, that just adds to the value that you're giving to your client. You're being helpful, and, just giving them a little bit of knowledge as well. If you can help them to understand your world a little bit better, you'll have better conversations. They'll trust you more as well. And, you'll have a better, longer term relationship with your client when it comes to that. And yeah, you've probably seen here, there's a little link down here that will get you, if you're interested in buying Logo Package Express, it'll get you 20% off of Logo Package Express, and I can now scroll up and you can now see live on the website, the Humanitive logo is now there. That's why I kind of had this hidden before. But this is the Logo Package Express website. It's just logopackage.com. Go check it out. There's plenty of videos, lots of information about what it does. If you're on my channel and you haven't watched the video yet, I do a 27-minute video where I basically show you how to use Logo Package Express. Like I say, you can export videos in 5 to 10 minutes, but obviously the video is longer because I'm showing you the stages on how to do things. This video is actually, it's nearly August the 3rd, 2020, so it's just celebrated its first birthday. So happy birthday to this video. I go through a few things, and the cool thing is that Michael's the guy who made the software, is always updating it. So there's been a few updates since then, because obviously Adobe Update Illustrator, and that's the thing I should say as well, it only works with Adobe Illustrator. It doesn't work with any of the Affinity products, so you have to have Adobe Illustrator. So don't buy it if you don't have Illustrator, because it won't work. You need to have Adobe Illustrator, but it will work on Mac and PC. But this is a good video for you to watch. It'll give you a full kind of run through of how that software works. If you do go to that video page, I think the link for the discount is there too. And then I think that's it. Yeah. So that's it for the Humanitive process. So that's where we ended up. And like I say, when Fox came to me, he came to me with this as his idea, and basically was sort of looking to, he felt that this was super close to what he wanted. Just felt that it maybe needed a better font and that this needed tidied up so that it would work at small sizes. But, I wouldn't say it wasn't because I didn't listen. I just felt that there was probably a better solution that was a bit more unique for them. And so it became this. So it is a bit of a shift from there to here, but a good one, I think, for that. So that's the case study done. Let me just grab a quick drink. I'm on holiday for 2 weeks from tomorrow. Can't wait. I'm off to a heavy metal festival for 5 days. I've got my heavy metal drinking mug that I take with me, so I'm just getting in some practice for some live music, which I've missed for 2 years. So the Humanitive logo is there to represent digital mixed with a human touch and human interactivity, and also represent the fact that they deal with the global goals and purpose and stuff like that. So there's a lot of messaging to try to get into a logo, but you're just trying to get across, make sure that the logo fits the wider brand, so that when you do start to see it with a lot of the content, that people start to go, oh yeah, kind of that fits. I feel that logo fits with the brand as a wider thing. So, Greg, I'm glad you are enjoying the content and seeing the process. Tashinga saying clean and simple, loves it. That's great. Tashinga, just to say, your logo is one of the logos that we're about to discuss, so strap yourself in. We're going to have a look at your logo. I've just realised that I've been talking about the logo there, and probably didn't jump back. I can't remember if it was on chat or not, but basically jumping between this. I forget that I've switched screens sometimes, but this was the one that he had, and then this is the one that we ended up with. Okay, so let's check a time. So we've been on for just over an hour, and let's take a look at a couple of logos that have been sent in. If you would like to send in a logo for review, yeah, I'm not going to. Lefko is just saying, what if you remove the excess details from the letter H? I'm talking about the logo he provided. Kind of been through all of that at the start of the stream, so it wasn't something that I was, we kind of looked at it, but it moved on to where it moved on to. So if you want to if you didn't catch it from the start, you can, once this is finished, you can go back and maybe catch the start of that. But lost my track a little bit there. Yeah, so we're going to look at some logos. So I can close that. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is if you want to submit a logo for review, you can do so at ryb.rocks/logo. I'll copy and paste that into here. I keep meaning to add that to the ticker. I will do that. Lorenzo, yeah, you've missed the client case study. I've literally just finished it. It was about an hour long. Hopefully you'd be willing to take the time to go back and see it. I do think it was an interesting one, seeing, to show the process of how that one came about. So, if you're interested in sort of processes, logo design processes, it's worth going back. And the cool thing about watching it on repeat is you can speed me up. So you can make it twice as fast and only have to spend half an hour watching. I don't know how fast I'll be talking, but you can always speed me up at times. So yeah, if you want to submit your logo, you can jump on over to ryb.rocks/logo and just basically complete the form. Give me details here. Attach your logo or logos, logo files. Answer the very difficult mathematical question and submit it. But all I ask is that you just read this stuff on the side because it is helpful to give me more information. Suhab, yours is in the list. So yours should be reviewed on the next live stream, which is 2 weeks from today. So keep an eye out for that. I think yours, correct me if I'm wrong, is yours the Luscious Magic one? I think it's the Luscious Magic one. If it is, that will be on the next stream. So I do have some more to kind of get through as well, but please keep submitting, because you know it's good to go through them and everyone's learning, and we can kind of, you know, help one another to move them forward. Hello cat lovers. Okay, so yours isn't that one. Let me just double check. All right, okay, so yeah, it's got that one. Right, cool. Okay, so let's go and look at a couple of logos. And we're looking at Tashinga's, and Tashinga is in the chat. So we'll hopefully get some input from him or her. Him, he, him, her. First thing I'll say is you didn't really provide me with very much information. It's be good to get a little bit more expansion on what it is around, you know, the target audience and the personality and things like that. So if, for example, I open up one from, let's open up one from last time. So here's one from the last time, and this is the information that Sabrina gave. You know, so there's quite a lot of descriptive information there, which really helps me when it comes to looking at the logo, because then I can see whether the logo fits what's being described to me. Whereas yours is very, very minimal. So it's quite difficult. And in a way, I'm kind of just judging the logo on how it looks rather than I've got a fly in front of me. You know, rather than the brand that it's trying to fit. So obviously the brand name is after yourself, so I think it's probably going to be more of a personal project. Industry sector is art. Target audience is a young audience. Brand personality is simplicity. I wouldn't say that simplicity is a brand personality. I would be looking more for sort of, is it fun? Is it serious? Is it outgoing? Is it passionate? You know, those types of feelings, because then we can look at the logo and go, does that logo give across those types of things? Simplicity is a good word. You know, you can say your logo looks simple, but I'm not sure that, you know, simplicity on its own kind of works as a brand personality. Brand qualities, you've just put cheap detailing. So I'm presuming is that to do with vehicles and detailing on vehicles, or is it detailing in other ways? And you didn't really provide any other info. Can't see my screen. Useless, absolutely useless. Thank you. Here we are. Everything I've just read is on screen, so don't worry about it. That's a human error, technical issue. So Tashinga's saying it was a little bit limited with the info as I just created the logo just for myself. Okay, that's fine, but I think if you are going to set a task of creating a logo as practice, then you should be treating it like it's a logo project. And so you should be going deeper into it, because otherwise what you're doing is you're really creating a logo to get better with the software, so you can kind of learn the tools and create something and, you know, and put something down. When you create a logo for a client, it's not just a case of here's something that looks good because I know how to use the software, you know, and hopefully that came across with the Humanative logo. There's a big journey that goes on there, and I could only create the Humanative logo because I knew deep knowledge of the client's business. I knew the target audience inside out. I knew what their industry sector was like and who they're competing with. I knew what brand personality and tone of voice, their values, their mission, their vision. I knew all of that stuff, and so I knew that it would work. And I'm not, you know, I'm not sort of being heavily critical of you. This happens all the time. It's just, you know, we all learn from this, and that's, you know, it's awesome that you've submitted this as well. I say this all the time as well. It's like, you know, it's probably getting boring now, but it's really brave to send your logo in for critique like this on a public forum, you know? So I got much respect for you for that. So please take anything I say in the way that it's intended. And that's just a learning experience, you know, to the next time you do it, right? Okay, I remember Cole said that I need to really go deeper into, you know, what the brand personality is before I start designing something, because knowing the brand's personality will then help me to know whether should I have sharp edges or soft edges, should I use this color, should I use this particular font. All of that will help you. Whereas right now, all I can really do is look at your logo in terms of how it's made and the balance of it and things like that, which is fine, and we can do that. It's not a problem. Yeah, it's cool. I think Tashinga's saying, no, it's good being criticised. I think it's good to be criticised if it's done in the right way. You know, you can get, you know, some people just say, I don't like it. It's not very good, is it? That's not helpful. If you're going to say it's not very good, then you should say why. Why do you feel it's not very good? Well, it doesn't. I don't think it fits this because this. So that then helps the other person to have a conversation with you and learn from why you don't think it works. So I'm really careful that if I find a logo isn't really that great, it's, well, how can we improve it? What are the things that we can do? What can we look at? How can we make it better? Anjali's saying, I'll submit for the stream after 2 weeks. I appreciate you like the content. Thank you. Yeah, please submit. I think I've got 1 or 2 for the next stream, and then pretty much open to having more logos submitted for streams going forward. I will admit that doing these streams can be difficult at times, you know, if your schedule's busy, but I'm also aware that I've not been doing any edited videos, and so this is just a commitment that I have to you guys for being subscribers, that I want to at least show up and be here for you and, you know, hopefully teach you something that you can learn from. So let's get back to your logo, Tashinga, okay? So let's see, did you answer my question about, so when you say cheap detailing for brand qualities and the industry sector's art, was I correct in it being linked to vehicles at all? Sort of vehicle detailing, that kind of thing? I know there's a delay between when I'm speaking and when you guys actually hear it, and then it's got to be typed in. But if I, you know, the logos, what I'm looking at right now, the logo's in grayscale. There's no color to it. It's black and white essentially. Okay, so it's drawing. Okay. So would I look at this then and see drawing? I don't think I would. Maybe see a technical side to it in a way. You know, if I had to guess, if I had to guess what it was from the logo, I would maybe kind of be, oh, you do pen portraits. Awesome. Okay. I would see it being something fairly technical, which obviously is not what you're doing. You're doing pen portraits. And by the way, anyone who's watching, please, you know, chip in and give your thoughts on the logos as well. You know, it's good to have other people's opinions on things, not just listening to me. But this is kind of where I struggle a little bit when I don't have a lot of information to kind of relate the logo to, and I just have to look at it from a visual standpoint. I'm not sure what the relevance of the outside kind of shape is, where it's cut off of the bottom corner and rounded on the top. I mean, if I took that away, I actually think that the logo is stronger. The T shape is stronger without this. Yeah, so Tashinga saying technical because of mechanical lines. Yeah, and I kind of, think about technical pens as well. When I was at art college, I used to use technical pens for doing line drawings and pen drawings. It kind of has that sort of. It reminds me. I think the brand is Staedtler. I'm pretty sure they have an S which looks similar to this. It's kind of like an inline type S. I could be wrong, but it does give me that sort of feel. But we've got some people commenting now, so let's see. So Mobius is saying, I like this one, but I'm not sure how this logo relates to drawing. And Suab saying, objectively speaking, this logo is too complicated. It may not look good when scaled down. Okay, so there's a couple of comments there. So in terms of what Mobius is saying, is he like this one? I do kind of, there's something about this that kind of sits okay with my eye. I don't know what it is. It's something about it's not exactly mirrored, but there are some nice things kind of going on with it. I'm sort of happier with this top section. I'm not too sure about this bottom section. I don't know whether, there's things that would maybe be, it's difficult, but I can see where, you're now saying pen drawings and things, and so you're kind of leaving marks. There is something about it. It is quite nice. Let's test it out at small size. So when you get to a small size, the lines are starting to come together, so you're starting to get a solid letter T. So you'd have to look at a way of mitigating that. And it may just be that maybe some of these lines need to be a bit thicker, or the white lines need to, work a bit better. But yeah, Greg's saying, I definitely saw the technical side of the logo because of how the lines are. The shape behind should be removed. Yeah, I'm not, sorry, let me go back. I'm not entirely sure that this adds anything other than just some more lines which kind of take your eye away from the letter T itself. So I would drop that, and I think this is this has potential. But I think a lot of people are kind of agreeing that they can see the technical side of it, but maybe not so much the drawing side of it. And maybe that's because maybe we need to see the name Tashinga, and you might be able to do something with some typography, which might kind of bring it in. Now, that's the thing with strap lines and taglines as well. That's where they can be useful, so you can actually clearly state what you do. Some people would say, oh, the logo you should be able to get from the logo exactly what it is that you do. I disagree with that. I think it can be difficult at times to have a logo, be an explainer. I don't treat logos as explainers. Sometimes the logo will show you what it is that the company does. If it's an axe, if they're, I don't know, chopping down lumberjack and it's an axe or whatever, right? There are some logos which will be very, very clear on what you do. But then there are others which are more abstract, which are more about the sort of the symbolism of what it is that they do, and sort of more metaphorical rather than being literal and saying we chop down trees, so we have an axe as a logo or a chainsaw as a logo. You can have that, but then there's other ways of doing it. So I think you need to sort of just work on this a little bit better, and bear in mind what a few people have said as well is what happens when it gets to smaller sizes. We're still okay at this sort of size, but if I size this for me in relation to what I'm viewing, if this has to go down to social media icon size, or even this chat window here, if I have to put that down to chat window size, it just becomes a solid letter T. Nothing wrong with that because it's T for Tashinga, so it fits. So you're kind of lucky in that respect, in that it still forms a letter T. But if it was anyone who had a logo that was representing something and they squished it down and it just became a circle or a square or a blob, then it doesn't actually work for them. You'd be fortunate with this in that it still stands for T for Tashinga, but then you would be losing all of this technical stuff, all of the pen related stuff. So see if you can come up with a solution to that. I have a couple of things in my head, but I don't want to give you those. I want you to kind of go away and think about that. And then also as well, the target audience. So things like the target audience where you're saying young, that again could come through in the typography that you use for the name to sit alongside the symbol, or it could be in the color. So if you want to use a more vibrant, youthful color scheme, that would work. But I would say if you're doing technical pen drawings, you're probably using, I would say, maybe black ink most of the time. So it may be more relevant that the logo remains black and white. So maybe then you want to try to find a typeface for the name, which is more, gets across some of the penmanship, or maybe it gets across more of that technical side. There's quite a few routes you could explore, so have fun with that. Can be easy to get a little bit stressed out with these types of things, but it looks like you're really open to the feedback, Tashinga, and I think you'll go away with this and hit the ground running and just explore some options. But all in all, as much as I've been kind of giving this critique, it's a great start for the information I have, and from what you've said, I think it's a good start, and I think you can take this and move forward with this. But it does need some improvements in certain areas. So think about scalability and just think about your audience and think about how you're going to get across what it is that you do with that. So Anjali's saying can't get the idea, thought process behind it. Again, it's difficult to kind of get that when you don't have too much information. Again, like Sabis and stuff, there's a little bit more sort of exploration going on, and you can kind of see where things are. There's been a few people who've sent in mock-ups, so they've created the logo and then they've shown the logo in situation, which again can help with the thought behind it. Oh, I see why that's there and why that works and how that works. So if you're watching this and you do want to submit your logo, yes, you can do as Tashinga has done and just submit a logo. But the more information you can provide myself and everyone else who's watching in the form of detail of information and how you envisage your logo being used on things will help as well. So that would be good. I mean, a good mock-up for this logo would be one of the cliche things that you see a lot of times on places like Behance, where you have the logo sort of as if it's on a sketchbook with the pens next to it and the lines and the technical lines for draw. That would actually kind of fit this one, because that's exactly the type of thing that you do. But Tashinga saying, thank you, Mobius, and thank you all for the feedback. So yeah, that was really nice, Tashinga, to thank everyone. Space Telegrams just missed his comment there. He's saying it looks too industrial to be a logo for an artist. Again, I think it depends on the type of art. If it's, I don't know what the pen portraits look like. So depending on what the finished output looks like, it could be that it does fit more of a technical, straight edge thing. It's just difficult to kind of to comment on something sometimes. But yeah, thanks for everyone's input. And Tashinga, again, thank you for submitting your logo. So let's move on to the next one. So this one has a little bit more information with it, but the logo does need some work. So this one is from Lawrence. I don't know if Lawrence is on here or if Lawrence just kind of catches up watching replays. So this brand name is Lunar Vision Design Studios. Industry sectors, graphic design. Target audience, small and new businesses looking for a cool, fun, and different graphic design experience, Brand personality. Lunar Vision is more than a designer or a place you go to for logos or graphics. Lunar Vision design is an experience and a home from home for creative business owners and their teams to share their ideas, explore a new home, and eventually find and design their brands and the experience their customers would die for. I'm not entirely sure what that means. Or just come back to and refer their friends, family, or peers to also. Brand qualities: reliable, fun, cool, modern, young, and fresh. And then no further info. And then it's just this logo. This is kind of all that I've been provided with. So, yeah, and I'm here to be honest, I'm not really feeling that this is the logo for a modern, cool, young and fresh graphic design studio. It looks amateurish. It's not what I would expect from a graphic design agency, especially not if I was a client who was looking for a design agency to create my logo. There are things that need fixed with this, and I think there's really simple ways that you can kind of move forward with this, Lawrence. It's not the greatest logo that I've seen. And as I said, if you submit your logo, you need to be prepared for the critique that I'll give on it. I can see some comments coming in, so I'll kind of finish my piece here and then I'll have a look at what people are saying in the chat. So let's just kind of work our way through what you've said here. So the target audience are for small and new businesses. They're looking for a cool, fun, and different graphic design experience. I'm not sure what you mean by a different kind of graphic design experience. I'm assuming that you mean in terms of the customer-client relationship, in that you want it to be a fun experience for the client. And I suppose I could see that you're trying to get a bit of fun across in the typography. It's sort of a script. It's not a sans serif. It's got, some flourishes to it. It looks like it's meant to be sort of hand drawn in a way, more like a script. And then the brand personality gets a little bit complicated. So Lunar Vision is more than a designer or a place you go to for logos or graphics. Okay. As a graphic design agency, I would have thought that is what you go there for. But you're saying there's more to that. And this is the bit that confuses me. So you're saying that it's an experience. Okay, I get that, and I could probably tie that into the target audience bit. It's an experience in terms of the customer should walk away feeling that they've had the best service and they've been listened to, and you've delivered exactly what they want, and they've had fun working with you, and it's been different to other designers that they've worked with. I get that. And we should all be trying to offer that to our clients. We should try to be making it a unique experience that they can really only get with you. And that's one of the things as well that means that not every client is right for you, because not everyone is going to want to have that experience. So you use your branding to push the wrong customers away and bring the ones that will align with your way of working closer to you. It's this next bit that I don't quite get. It's a home from home for creative business owners and their teams. Now, when you say creative business owners, I'm presuming you mean business owners that can think creatively rather than creative businesses, other design agencies, because then that makes it sound like you're trying to build a community for other design businesses. So I'm going to take it that you mean that it's a home from home for business owners who can think creatively and their teams, so that it's somewhere that if they have ideas, if the business owner has a creative idea, they can come to Lunar Vision Design and explore those ideas, and then through that exploration they will have Lunar Vision execute on those ideas and deliver the brand and the experience that that client wants to give to their customers. So they want to create a brand that's going to attract their customers. I think that's what that means. And again, that's fine. That's you're basically what you're saying there is you want Lunar Vision to build a strong reputation that customers will continue to come back to for design work. They trust you implicitly. If they have ideas or anything they want to discuss, they won't think about anyone else. They will come back to Lunar Vision and they will discuss those ideas. And together you will work to bring those ideas to life, which then helps their brands attract more clients. I think that's what that means. And then you've said, or just come back to and refer their friends, family, or peers to. So again, what you're saying is your Lunar Vision's clients have such a great experience that they may not have any need to come back and explore ideas, but what they will do is we had such a great experience that I am going to recommend you to everyone else. Okay, so I'm just going through this trying to build up an idea of what Lunar Vision is trying to be, so that we can then look at the logo and go, does this logo reflect all of the stuff that the brand is trying to be? And like I've said in the last one, it doesn't have to be literal. We're just trying to get a feeling of, does this logo represent a company that can deliver on what they're saying? And that's what we're trying to get to. And then you've got the brand qualities are reliable, fun, cool, modern, young, and fresh. Okay, so let's have a look at the chat and see what's being said. So I think the first one is Suhab, and he's saying it looks more like a 90s soda brand or something. Yeah, I could probably kind of see that. Lorenzo's saying that he loves the fact that Tishinga was so cool with criticism. Well done. Yeah, it can be hard sometimes to take criticism. But if you're willing to take it on, and as a designer, you have to be prepared for that because you're going to have clients criticizing you all the time. You have to grow a thick skin. You can put your heart and soul into a job, into a logo design. But you have to be prepared for pushback. Don't get defensive. If you get defensive, that's not the best approach. You have to listen to the client because they have real concerns. They know their business. They know their customers. You have to listen to them, because they might be giving you information that they should have given you at the start. So it could be good, useful information. Angeli's saying, yeah, he's saying the same. It was brave of Tishinga. We all learned through points of view. Ephraim's saying that the logo looks a little bit retro. I 100% agree with that. Tishinga's just saying thanks to everyone. Ifiko's saying 1950s, so we're getting this whole retro vibe coming through. Lorenzo's saying he struggled with reading the text Lunar Vision on first glance. Tishinga's saying, I feel like using shadows on small letters, it hides the main colour. In this case, the white on Design Studio is overpowered by the black shadows and is illegible. Ben's saying, once the logo's finished, who designs the letterhead for company letters, reports, etc.? Or is this all part? Okay, so you're okay. Sorry, I thought it was about Lunar Vision. I will jump back to that, Ben. Once I finish doing this critique here, I'll jump back to that question. Greg saying this logo does not look inviting or professionally done or fully in line with the brief. I think the logo can be done to leave a more lasting impression on the clients and users. Mobius is saying, this feels like a surf clothing company. As a word mark, it's indistinct and something simple and refined as a logo might work better for a modern design company. And Greg saying he agrees with Tishinga. Okay, so I agree with a lot of the comments there. Where you're saying, Lawrence, that you want it to be modern, young and fresh, it doesn't give that feeling. It does feel very retro. So if you'd said in the brand qualities that you wanted to give it a retro vibe, I would have said you were kind of on the money for that, but actually it's the other way around. Now, you can You can create a logo that has a retro look, but it feels modern. But there's specific ways of doing that. This one isn't quite kind of hitting the mark with that. I'm just going to zoom in so people can. This is going to. By the way, this is a PNG file, folks. So this will get pixelated as I zoom in. It's not a vector file. The shadows that you have are strange. The way you've done them. I think what you've done is I think you have Lunar Vision in white, then you've copied that layer, put it in the background, made that layer black, so you made the text black, and then you've stretched it. You've stretched it so that it now shows behind the white, and that's not really how a drop shadow works. Really, the drop shadow would kind of be, either equal all the way around the letters. So what's throwing everyone's eye off is the fact that you've got this really high shadow here where you've stretched it up. You've also stretched it down, but because you've stretched it horizontally, you have no shadow on the leading edge of this L, so you lose that, so it makes it look a bit weird. These letters are doing okay because they're on the yellow. And then the N does okay because once you get past the center V, the shadow's now being pulled out this edge because you've stretched it that way. So that's just the first thing to say is you shouldn't really do that. That's not the best way to create a shadow. If you are going to create a shadow in the way that you've done it, where you're duplicating the layer and making the text black, what you should do is you should just nudge that layer using either your arrow key or dragging it with a mouse, nudge it down and nudge it to the right. Then you're giving it a drop shadow. If you want the shadow to appear equally around each letter, then you should either add a stroke to the outside of it, or actually that is what you would do. You would basically add a stroke to the outside of that text, and then you could move it around. But the shadow's not working, and you can see here on the design studios, it's not worked at all. I get the feeling that Lunar Vision and Design Studios is on the same layer, and so when you've stretched it for Lunar Vision, it's not quite worked for Design Studios at the same time. So have a look. Well, I mean, what I could do is I could just very quickly, I might as well, let's just do a quick type here. So let's just type this in. I'm not going to choose the font that you've got, but so you've got this here. Okay, so let's just do a big circle as well. Okay, let's just replicate this a little bit. Send it back and give it a stroke here of what, 20? Nope, way too big. 8, maybe a little bit less. Let's give it 6. And also one of the things as well I noticed is that it feels it's a little bit squashed. The circle feels a little bit squashed. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. But if I make this text white, okay, so we've now got this text in white going across here. Now what you've done, I think, is you've created the letters and you've put them in the back, and then what you've done is you've kind of stretched it like that, and then stretched it down a little bit. And that's how you've created your shadow. You can actually see, even though I'm using a different font, it's pretty much exactly what you have there. So that's not really how you would do a shadow. Oh, I've deleted the wrong one. So let's just move that out of the way. What you want to do is you want to duplicate your layer and drop it behind, and then you make it black, but then just nudge that layer which is below down and to the right. You are running into, we're running into a bit of an issue here. on the left edge of this L, and we're running into a bit of an issue on the top of the N. But if this L had sort of the little kind of accent on the top, then it might be a little bit better. But you can see there that it's a better looking shadow because it's more uniform to it. And that's basically how I do it. Or the other option is that you do an actual drop shadow. You may have created your logo in Photoshop. I'm not sure. I don't know what software you've used. But most apps have a drop shadow in them. I'm not massively keen. It's easier to use the drop shadow tool in Photoshop. Illustrator's a little bit different, but you just have to kind of mess around with the different sort of opacities and how much blur you want to have on the drop shadow. But if I make this 0x and 0y offset, that will put the drop shadow directly behind the white text. It's at 75% opacity. If I make it 100, it'll make it a bit darker. If I take the blur down to 1 pixel, you can see there that it's a lot sharper. If I put it back up to 5, it'll blur it out a lot more. I'm not too keen on those types of drop shadow. I would rather use the sort of the option that I had used before. So that's just a really quick thing with that. So don't kind of stretch a shadow that way. That's not how it really works. And so obviously, you know, like say, everyone's kind of commenting that it looks a little bit retro, and I do believe that is because of the typeface that you've chosen. If you want it to look modern, you maybe want to look more at a sans serif. You can look at script. There are some modern script fonts, and then I think you're kind of missing a bit of a. It's maybe obvious, but you know, this is yellow. If it was going to be, you know, the moon, would it maybe be a little bit more pale? You know, would you try to do something which was maybe leaning a little bit more into sort of like a lunar effect? Could you put some sort of craters on here? Or maybe you could just go sort of, you know, all in and oops, that's PNG. I'm going to lock this so I stop moving it around. You know, you could go in and you could use your Pathfinder tool and just, you know, actually have a moon shape and, you know, do something with your text around you know, a moon shape behind it. You could even have, you know, you could have a circle come in around here, so it's almost like an eclipse thing. Or, you know, you could kind of just kind of thinking about this. You could, I'm maybe being again too literal with it, but it's you know, sort of exploring ideas of, you know, do something that's sort of. This is the part of the live stream show where I just do some crappy rush stuff. But you know, if you did sort of like an eye shape, and you know, and kind of played on the lunar vision thing, I don't know, maybe that doesn't work for the brand, but as much as this is quite a simple logo. It's a circle with some text on it. I think you could keep it still keep it really simple, but make it more polished, make it look a little bit more modern, because right now it's maybe not kind of fulfilling what you need it to fulfill. I mean, that's kind of causing an eye shape in the middle there. You know, is there maybe something that can be done where it's kind of, you're sort of doing the moon shape. and then you've got the vision, which is you've kind of got the eye in the middle, and you're doing, lunar vision is there, and I don't know, maybe you drop a pupil in. I don't know. But I think there's maybe something that can look a little bit more modern for lunar vision. It's quite a cool name, lunar vision. Maybe it doesn't need to be one word. Maybe it could be actually lunar vision. But I think you could kind of get there. I'm going to check the chat again in a second. But in all honesty, I don't think that this represents what you're trying to achieve here. I think you need to have something which is cleaner, a little bit more, clean lines. That will then help it look more modern, less retro. Color-wise, you can sort of go with whatever, colors you feel work for it. But if you're going to be kind of using the lunar thing, then maybe try to kind of work in some of that lunar feel or the lunar shapes. I could potentially just even play around with sort of multiply so that you're getting a bit, you can kind of see more of the crescent moon shape thing with that. So let's see what people are saying now. Angela is saying maybe the font can be yellow, the oval with black strokes seems a bit off. Westside saying, can I copyright a logo and then put on shirts and hats and sell it? Yes, you can, because it's your property. You can't take someone else's logo and copyright it. But if you create that logo, then yeah, you can do whatever you want with it. You don't even have to copyright it, you don't, or trademark it or anything. When I say you don't have to copyright it, it depends on which country you're in. So here in the UK, if you create a piece of artistic work, you are instantly, you are the copyright holder. You're the creator of that work, and you can do with it whatever you want. If you're going to make, t-shirts and stuff, there's a lot of instances where people are creating works and then maybe putting them on a portfolio online, and then companies in other parts of the world are just basically stealing that artwork and printing it on t-shirts and selling it, and it's really difficult to get them to stop because they don't respect the copyright laws of the country where the artwork was done. So in that instance, if it's something that that you think is valuable to you and you want to use it to make money, then you could officially copyright it under intellectual property, or you could trademark it. But trademarking is quite a lengthy process. But essentially, if you create the work, then you can do what you want with it. You can sell it. You just can't. You can't go onto a stock website, download a logo, put it onto a t-shirt, and sell it, unless it specifically says you can do that in their licensing terms. Greg saying the black outline should be removed from the small words under lunar vision for sure. Yeah, the design studios would have been, I'll say okay. White on yellow isn't the highest contrast in the world. So, and you're definitely going to, I forgot I locked that. You're definitely going, you put that down to small sizes, you just lose everything. You can't see anything with it. So, you have to have it, to be able to read Design Studio, well, really, you kind of need it to be this size to read the Design Studio's part. But yeah, I would change that, and I would just kind of, just make it as modern as, as you can. I just think there's easy steps that you can take from this one, Lawrence, into bringing upscaling it into something which you want it to match with here. Because if you've got people who want you to design their logo, then you should be able to kind of show, I don't know, maybe the portfolio of other logo work is very different to this, I don't know. I can only judge based on this. So for example, my logo just says Pixels Inc. and it just has PI in a little circle. It's not trying to be clever in any way. It just says Pixels Inc. Because I want people to, to kind of look at my portfolio of work and judge what I do for my clients. I'm not trying to be clever with... I tried to be clever with my logo years ago and play on the pixels and ink stuff, and it was just cheesy, and it didn't work for me. So I just went for a straight, word mark. That was fine for me. Let's see. Greg saying, yes, a logo coming from a play on the word lunar would be great. You can do some sketches and come up with something great, then take it to Illustrator. I think that's all that's needed here. I think just a little bit of time exploring the lunar and the vision. There's must be so many approaches you could take with that. And I think this kind of feels a little bit rushed. There may well have been, an idea behind that maybe looked better, but the execution of it hasn't really succeeded. And so this is an example of one where it's probably, it's not been great news, but hopefully, it's information and advice that you can take and move forward with it and produce something that will fit all of the things. And these are, this is some pretty, pretty high vision stuff that you're talking about people coming to you and just, if they have any ideas, they're going to come and explore them with you and, and do stuff like that. Even I don't have clients that do that. They kind of explore them themselves, or they don't explore at all and they just ask you to do it. But I think you need to execute on your logo a little bit better to reflect that customer experience that they're expecting to get. I think you need to just be a little bit more, sharp around the brand identity there. Hey Esteban, no worries. I appreciate you if you're going to catch the replay later. So it was just the two logos today. As I say, there'll be two more logos next one, which is in 2 weeks' time. I am on holiday, but I'm going to hang around with you guys and do another live stream. And so we'll look at another couple of logos. If anyone wants to submit the logo this week or next week, please do. And what we could do is we could make it a longer sort of, we could do more than 2 reviews. We could do a few more reviews, maybe 4 or 5, and kind of dig in and just help people to kind of take their logos onto the next step. Now, I don't want to forget Ben's question, which was, once the logo's finished, who designs the letterhead for company letters, reports, etc., or is this all part of your package? It depends. I do logo work for other agencies. They hire me to come in and do brand identity work, and in those instances, I come in and I create the logo. I will create the logo guidelines. I will create the file package, which I showed you as part of the Humanitive case study earlier on in the stream. And then they have their own team of graphic designers, and they will produce the letterheads and stuff. What I will do, though, as part of the process, I didn't show it with the Humanitive one there, but as part of my, I suppose, selling process, when I've created the logo concept and I want to present that to the client, I will usually create a series of mock-ups showing that logo concept in use, because that really helps the client to visualize their logo in the real world. If I just show it on a white page, it can be difficult for them to grasp how flexible and versatile that logo could be. And so I will create mock-ups, and sometimes one of those mock-ups would be stationery or letterheads. So maybe a letterhead with a business card and an envelope. And then it's just a case of if the client's actually happy with that as a mock-up, then it just needs to be created as print-ready artwork. But I'll do things like water bottles, polo shirts, just things that I think that that particular client will need. And each client's different, you know. Try to do some mock-ups which are very relevant to their audience or their industry. So if it was construction, you might do like one on a hard hat or a high vis safety vest on the back or something, just to let them see the logo in the sort of the ecosystem that they work in. And that really helps to sell it. And they then start imagining it on other things that you've not done mock-ups for. So that's a case of if I'm doing the logo for someone else. But yes, if the client's coming to me, then I will give them a quotation, and that will generally be quotation for the strategy work, the creation of the identity, and then a separate quote for deliverables, which would be stationery, anything else, vehicle graphics. I don't do web design work. I used to. I don't anymore. But what I can do is I can still give the client quotes for that, because I partner up with businesses who do web design, and I will get them to give me a quote, and I will then bundle that up and pass that on to my client. In terms of stationery, though, these days, more and more people are just asking me to do Microsoft Word digital letterheads, and then they're just basically doing their letters and saving them as a PDF and emailing them. That's happening more and more. Very few of my clients get traditional letterheads printed these days, which is a shame, because you can do a lot, especially if you get a really nice paper, maybe get your letterheads double-sided printed, some really nice envelopes. Because not many people do send those these days, if you do it and you do it really well, it makes you stand out. It makes the brand stand out. So depending on who I'm working with as a client, if they're a client that's dealing with high-end sales, so their service or product is of a high value, then I always recommend that they go the extra mile and really show that high-end value, whether it be through their packaging or their stationery. Chat's kind of jumped down a little bit. So it just depends on the situation, but if it's done through me, then yeah, I will provide a quotation for doing that work. I also, if I'm really busy, then I have other designers that work with me. So I'll maybe do the identity work, I'll create some mock-ups, and then I will work with them and say, hey, I've just finished this brand identity. I need a brochure done. I need some stationery done. Here's the overall look of the brand. Here's the logo guidelines. Can you please go away and do that? And, so I will basically pay them to do that. The client just has to deal with me. They're not having to deal with another designer, but I work with designers that I trust, and I know they'll do a good job, so that, that reflects well on me, because the last thing you want to do is do a great job on the brand identity and then try to make extra money by charging the client, finding someone cheap, get them to do the stationery, and it ends up being terrible, and you end up having to do it yourself anyway. So you have to make sure you find the right people. And I've got a really good little black book of designers who are friends of mine who can help me out when I'm really, really busy, and vice versa. I'll help them out if they've got an overflow of work. So it's good. You build a nice community of people able to help one another out when one's quiet and one's busy. So that works. And Jali's kind of talking about the Half Moon one. So many approaches, and Moby's saying, thanks to Lawrence for the submission. Was a great one for the variety of aspects. Yep. Same as I said to Shinga. We wouldn't be having this live stream without your submission, Lawrence. So, I hope you did find it useful. I really appreciate you taking the time to submit this. And you did take the time as well to give some detail, which is super helpful. And hopefully anyone who's watching this and wants to submit a logo has learned that the more detail you can give us as a group, when we're looking at your logo, it really helps because it helps steer us to give the right advice as to how you can adapt the logo concept to fit what it is that you're trying to achieve. So the more you can do that, the more you can provide, the better and higher quality advice you will get from myself in terms of how you can take that forward. So I think that's everything sort of on the chat for today. Where are we at? Another 2-hour live stream. This is getting to be a habit. Thank you to everyone that's kind of jumped on today. It was a good turnout again today. I appreciate it. I know a few kind of tuned in a little bit later. You will be able to catch the replay. As I mentioned to someone else, it means you get to fast forward me in bits where you think I'm prattling on too much. But I think this has been a really good live stream. I think everything has definitely has value for you if you're looking to get into logo design, or you're already into logo design. You're just looking to kind of find a bit more about best practice. How does someone else do it? Maybe you could implement some of those things. So hopefully the case study for Humanative was useful. I do get asked a lot about doing some information on brand strategy. That's a little bit more kind of heavy duty. I am trying to find ways of how can I kind of bring that and simplify that down a little bit. So it might even just be we do a short section on a live stream that breaks down the modules or the approach that I take in brand strategy and how each bit influences the next. I have got a fantastic case study sitting in the wings that I want to take you through because it shows you my full brand strategy process and the outcome, a full brand master guide. But that client hasn't launched their brand yet. And so it wouldn't be right of me to show their brand off on a live stream before they've launched it themselves. So we might have a couple more months yet before I can do that. But I think that will be an eye-opener for a lot of people who watch that. I'm not sure whether I will make that a live stream or whether I'll make that an edited video, because I think it could be quite a successful edited video. But what I might do is what I've not done. There's a thing on YouTube called Premiere where you can have a live stream and then at the end of the live stream, the video launches. So maybe what we could do on the live stream is we could actually go through the brand master guide and have a chat about it. And then at the end of that, the edited version of my walkthrough case study launches. That might be an idea to do something like that. So, great. So, so thank you very much. Hopefully, I turned the volume up on my microphone this week because I had a few people complaining at the end of the last stream that I was too quiet. My volume said it was fine, but I've just cranked it right up. So hopefully it's been okay this week. And Mobius, yes, I am off to Bloodstock Heavy Metal Festival next week for 5 days. I may not survive. Getting a bit old now, but 5 days camping in a field, it's starting to take its toll. But you know what? I've got a week off after that to recover. So I am seriously looking forward to it. I'm sure I will maybe tell you a little bit about it on the live stream in 2 weeks' time. As Tashinga has just posted, thank you to everyone for coming on, and take care, keep safe, and stay creative. And I will see you all in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.